It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Jen Cohen as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. As always, it's great to have you in studio with us today. We're sitting down with Clarkdale Town Manager Gail Mayberry. We're going to be talking about the United Verde Soil Program. Welcome to studio.
Thanks, Paul.
Good to have you. I was talking to Beth about other things, and then we wound up getting onto the United Verde Soil Program, and it's been underway for a couple of years now. Lots of talk about it, so people are probably a little familiar with it. A few things for you. There's more information on the Clarkdale website at clarkdale.az.gov on the right-hand side of the page. Phone number, too, is a good one for you, is 928-649-3614. That phone number goes to United Verde.
It does. They have a local office in Clarkdale right on Broadway. I think it's 200 North Broadway near the Bitter Creek Bridge. And so they've got local folks on staff, so anyone that has questions or wants to know if their property's within the study area can call them. And
so they even opened an office.
They have.
So you can walk right in and talk to somebody.
Absolutely. They're there Monday through Friday.
Fantastic. Okay, and the number again is 928-649-3614. All right, Gail's going to take us on a little trip through time.
Right.
So take us back in time and tell us how we got up to the point we're at right now.
Well, it goes all the way back to the beginning of Clarkdale. Obviously, we're a mining community. We were built as the smelter town to serve the Jerome mines. And back then, the company that built that was the United Verde Copper Company. So they operated the smelter in Clarkdale from 1913 until 1935.
Wow.
And then they sold their company to Phelps Dodge, who operated the company until 1953. So Freeport Minerals Company is the company that is undertaking this voluntary remediation program. They purchased Phelps Dodge Corporation, and when a mining company purchases an old mining company, they not only get the assets, but they also get the liabilities that come with that and the responsibility for any kind of remediations or cleanups that need to take place. So Freeport now, obviously Clarkdale hasn't been a mining company in a long, long time.
Long time.
But now we have remediation activity happening as a result of that. We actually had a big project a number of years ago that Freeport undertook to remediate the tailings pile in Clarkdale near Tuzigoot National Monument.
That's that big black slag pile that was out there.
Actually, it's not.
No, that's
there was
not.
a kind of a big orange.
Okay, right around the base of Tuzigoot.
Those were the smelter tailings.
Right. I forgot about that. Okay.
So they went through and did a phenomenal job. Actually, they were awarded national awards for that remediation.
You really wouldn't even know what happened.
You wouldn't.
It's all revegetated. It's all come back. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It looks great. They've done some major remediation work up in Jerome on their properties up there. And so now they're focusing their remediation on a project that is aimed at, it's called the United Verde Soil Program. And so back when the smelters were operating at that time, they didn't have air quality emission standards. They didn't do that back then. And so that the air emissions from the smelter contained metals. And those metals would emit out from the stacks and then settle on lands around the smelter. So they're actually testing for, I think, 6 different kind of metals, but really it's 2 metals that have emerged are the issues associated with the United Verde smelter, and that's lead and arsenic.
Okay, makes sense.
Right. So they came to Clarkdale in 2015 to tell us, you know, we want to do this program. We've gone to the Department of Environmental Quality voluntarily, and we are going to contact all the property owners in this area, in the study area, and we've got a map up here that we can talk about. It's voluntary for the property owners as well, but if they choose to participate, then Freeport will send their contractors in, they test the soil, and there's approved levels of arsenic and lead that can be in the soil. If they exceed those limits, then they're eligible to have their soil remediated, which means they remove that soil and then they bring clean soil back in, restore the landscaping, and that's all paid for by Freeport. There's no cost to the property owner.
Let's back up again, though. You've mentioned, you said the word twice now. We talked about it before the show, too, and I think it's pretty impressive, but it's voluntary.
It is voluntary.
And that's just a huge price tag.
Right.
I mean, you hear about it all the time where these big companies just you know, out of sight, out of mind. If we don't say anything about it, no one's going to know about it. But these folks came in, and do we know how they kind of figured out that this was going on and they needed to do it? I mean, obviously, because I guess the stacks
Right, and you know,
down.
it's really common in old smelters that operated at that time. This isn't new. So all across the country, there are smelters that have had to remediate. That's just how things operated back then. And so it's very common that those kind of emission impacts occur. This is actually their 4th project in Arizona.
You mentioned that before the show too.
Right.
So they've also gone to what?
They've
Bisbee?
gone to Bisbee, Douglas, and Ajo,
Okay.
where they operated smelters in those towns. We actually went down after we learned of the project. A team from Clarkdale went to Bisbee. We spent 3 days down there talking to residents, talking to business owners, talking to the city, learning as much as we could, because they took about 7 years to do the Bisbee project. Bisbee's a lot like Jerome, so really steep slopes.
Sure,
yeah. It was just impressive to see how they had to handle those remediations. I think Clarkdale will be a lot easier for them just because of the landscape.
Sure.
But it's extensive. There's a lot of properties impacted. Right now, there are over 1,100 properties that are eligible for the program.
How many properties are there in Clarkdale? Can you give me
Oh
that
my
number?
gosh, I don't have
Do you
that
a
number
good-
off the
do you have
top
a
of my
guesstimate,
head.
roundabout?
Well, it depends on what you're defining as a property. But
Okay,
we have
okay.
we have probably 2,000 homes in Clarkdale.
So a little more than half.
Well, the properties that I'm referencing here also includes public properties. So it
Okay,
includes
okay.
the town hall complex. It includes our alleys, our right-of-ways. So it's not; those aren't all individual residential
Gotcha,
parcels,
okay.
but a bunch of them are.
Land that came back with too high levels of lead and arsenic.
Exactly.
Okay, so irregardless of what it is, they were willing to come in, get rid of that contaminated soil, put down new soil,
Right.
and then fix
Right,
what
and
was done.
there are properties that aren't eligible, but the eligible properties within that study area are occupied residential, occupied commercial, and then publicly owned schools, parks, right-of-ways, those kind of things. But if it's a vacant piece of property that's not currently developed, that may or may not be eligible. So that's one of those things that people might have a question about, and they should contact that local office and talk to the folks there to figure out if they are eligible to participate.
Yeah, I'd be kind of curious right then, okay, if I got a vacant piece of land that's not developed yet, is there like a moratorium as to when I can say, hey, I want you to come in and this land does qualify for that?
Right. If it's in the study area, what we've been told by the folks from Freeport is that if, for instance, someone said, well, I've got a development proposal on the table, I'm ready to go on this, then they would take a look at that and probably include it in the program. But there has to be something happening, because the reason for the remediation is basically to protect against kind of daily contact from people. So if the property's not developed, then that's really not a risk. But they've also said that they'll be here in the area for quite some time. I would guess they'll be here at least 4 or 5 years. And so
It's a big project.
it's a big project, and
Yeah.
as long as they're here, people have got that opportunity. And then after they leave, there will be a 1-800 number that folks can call and get more information, and they might even come back if warranted. So
Let me ask you this, Gail. Do we know how far down do they have to go before they find that contaminated soil? Because over the years, you know, things drift in. And,
right.
Yeah.
So typically what they find is it's usually the top 3 inches of soil that are impacted,
Okay.
but they actually do testing in increments, basically 6-inch increments down to 2 feet. And the results that they're getting back in Clarkdale, they're finding impacts all the way down to that 2 feet in some cases, but usually it's in that top 6 inches of soil.
Okay. All right. Let's take our first break already.
All right.
Clarkdale Town Manager Gail Maybury in studio today. Good website for you, clarkdale.az.gov. Right-hand side of the page there's more information there. Also, you can contact the company at 649-3614. United Verde Soil Programs, what we're talking about countywide, back in just a couple minutes.
So you're looking online now? Yeah, great condition. Oh, I hate to see her go, but I really just need the cash. Well, the price is still just $1,000, but you have to send the money now, right now. Well, that's why the price is so low. Like I said, I need cash fast. I can't wait on a check or money order. You have to send cash now.
The moment they ask for immediate cash is the moment you know something's wrong. Think before you send money. Learn more at scamawareness.org.
Orkin has pest control down to a science.
When your business chooses Orkin's Precision Protection Program, you get a tailored pest control program for your specific industry and environment.
Your business can benefit from over a century of experience, training, and scientific knowledge that define the Orkin man.
Maximum protection, minimum exposure, backed by one of the industry's most comprehensive guarantees.
Choose your locally owned and operated Northern Arizona Orkin and get more than an exterminator. Get an expert.
Welcome back to Countywide. Gabe Milbury in studio today from Clarkdale Town Manager. We're talking the United Verde Soil Program. I got to slow down when I say this. Freeport Minerals Corporation is coming voluntarily. They're going to take care of all the impacted soil. Their number is 928-649-3614. They have an office in downtown Clarkdale?
It's on Broadway, so on the way to the train station.
On the way to the train station, okay. Good website. The town of Clarkdale's website has more information there too at clarkdale.az.gov. I think you said it was on the right-hand side of the page there.
It is.
You believe it's right there, okay. So let's talk about the impacted areas that we know so far.
Absolutely.
Where are those areas at?
So Freeport started the project and identified their first study area was basically the original town site of Clarkdale. So Upper and Lower Clarkdale, Patio Park, or Patio Town as the old timers call it.
Right down Main Street.
Yep, right down Main Street all the way kind of along the river on Rincon, and also the Yavapai Apache Nation, the reservation in Clarkdale. They're actually dealing with the Yavapai Apache Nation separately, under a separate program, because they're their own sovereign nation, so they're not governed under ADEQ. So they're dealing with their own federal stuff on that. So all of the numbers that I talk about for our program do not include the Yavapai Apache Nation numbers as well.
All right.
So that was back in March of 2015 that they identified that study area.
All right.
And they started soil sampling back in June last year in that original area. And then they collected all that data and started to see where were we getting impacts. They actually had great response from the residents in that area. I think they had over 85% of the property owners agreed to the sampling.
Clarkdale's a pretty tight group.
It is a tight group, and it's, you know, it's important. The town and Freeport really encourage people to participate. That some people decide not to for their own reasons, but it's a great opportunity. There's no cost to the property owner, and a great way to get your yard cleaned up and not have that issue anymore.
Sure, sure.
So that first phase, 85% participation, about 85% of the properties tested with higher levels of arsenic and or lead than were approved under the program, so they're eligible to get cleaned up.
Were they or the town surprised by that, or were they fully expecting to see that much?
You know, I'm not sure if they were surprised or not. We were a bit surprised that it was that extensive, but that whole original town site, that's an area that's pretty close to that smelter, so I don't think it's surprising that that's where you would find that impact. Based on those samples, they said, all right, along the edges of that study area boundary, we're still seeing significant levels, so we need to expand the study area. So earlier this spring, they expanded out to include the Mountain Gate subdivision, Centerville, an area called the Palisades, part of the Palisades neighborhood, and then Panorama subdivision.
Gotcha.
So they just started sampling in that area early summer, and they're getting the results back now. That expansion, we took the number of eligible properties from somewhere in the 600s from the original study area. Now it's up in the 1,100 properties that are eligible.
There's your jump right there,
Yeah, and so as they get the data back on these new areas, they'll take a look at that again, see what the levels are coming back at, and if they need to consider expanding again, they'll look at it and potentially do that. They haven't made any determination on that at this point.
Okay, all right. So after this happens, after they've fanned out and fanned out and find out, okay, the levels have dropped off now. They're no longer dangerous. We know where the smelter fallout was. And right now it looks like it was right over the top of Clarkdale, which makes sense. Breeze out of the southwest, mining up in Jerome, all falls right down there. So at what point in time do we see digging and things like that taking place?
Right, so really interesting. The process right now is that Freeport needs to have a site to take all this soil. It's called a soil repository.
Okay.
So they're going to take it out of the yards, but they have to put it somewhere.
They can't just dump it anywhere.
Right. So they're going through a process right now to get a conditional use permit from Yavapai County for a 50-acre site that they own out on Sycamore Canyon Road. And that's where they'd like to establish the soil repository. They'll actually take the soil, then they put it through a treatment process, and it renders it basically inert. So it's no longer an issue with elevated levels of arsenic or lead. Then they take that, encapsulate it, and that's a remediated site at that point.
Okay.
So they have a hearing in front of the Yavapai County Planning and Zoning Commission on September 21st here in Cottonwood at the Board of Supervisors room at 9 a.m. So Planning Commission will hear that. It'll eventually go to the Board of Supervisors, I think, in October. And once they secure that use permit, then they've got a site to take the soil and they can move forward and get started with remediation.
Right, okay. Now the council was looking at this week.
Our council did have an agenda item on our meeting agenda so that we could give comment to Yavapai County about that use permit application. And so our council approved a letter. Our main concern was Sycamore Canyon Road and the potential for impacts to that road because it'll be a lot of construction traffic.
Sure.
But the town actually has an agreement already with Freeport that we negotiated early in this project where they've agreed to analyze our road structures, and if they have any impacts on our roads through the project, they'll pay to repair those. So they'll do the same thing on Sycamore Canyon Road as well.
Wow, okay. Jobs.
Yes.
You brought this up, and I hadn't considered this when I knew you were coming in today. That this is going to create. We already know that Clarkdale's got some housing development going on.
That's right.
It picked up pace. I talked to Beth, and that was kind of the start of it. That was part of our conversation, was that housing is keeping up with the rest of the Verde Valley. People are moving into Clarkdale, and homes are being built. Okay, and then being bought, and people are moving in. So that's good news for Clarkdale. So jobs.
Right.
We got jobs coming in too.
We do have jobs coming in, and that was one of the things that we learned in Bisbee. They were doing this project in Bisbee during the downturn in the economy, and it actually kept Bisbee fairly stable through that time because they bring in, if I remember correctly, 50 to 75 folks that'll come in just on the construction teams. They've of course been operating the soil testing crews in Clarkdale for the last 2 years. So a lot of activity, but once they start construction, a lot more activity.
Now these folks probably move in.
Yeah, initially they bring in specialized teams that are trained in this kind of remediation work, but what they have experienced in other places and what their goal is, bring those teams in and then start hiring local folks, train them up on what needs to be done. So at the beginning, it's folks from the outside, but then it transitions, and by the end of the project, it's mainly local folks. So beginning, those folks coming in need housing, so they're looking for rental housing that's furnished. So that will be a need when they come in, and I would guess they'll start getting here towards the end of this year. And then afterwards, we'll have local folks that are working the project.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, we'll get to another break. Clarkdale Town Manager Gail Milbury in studio today. We're talking about the United Verde Soil Program in Clarkdale. Stick around. Countywide, we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
This is Bruce Morrow, Transportation Manager for Cottonwood Area Transit. Remember, we cover the entire Verde Valley and Sedona. Cottonwood Area Transit has you covered wherever you want to ride in the Verde Valley, all day, every day. Take Cottonwood Area Transit through Clarkdale, Verde Village, and from 26 locations in Cottonwood. With Verde Links, it's a quick and easy trip to Sedona every day. Don't forget our connectors to Camp Verde. Visit cottonwoodaz.gov for Cottonwood Area Transit and take a seat. Let's go ride.
The Q102.9 plays all the hits.
Yo, what's going on? This is Drizzy Drake.
Ariana Grande.
Maroon 5.
This is Rihanna.
I'm Shawn Mendes.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
Ed Sheeran.
What's up, guys? It's Justin Bieber.
You're listening to The Weeknd.
Start your day with Brian James in the morning. You'll get at least 10 songs in a row during your ride home with Julie Page.
Zach Sang Show.
Catch the Zach Sang Show weeknights 7 to midnight. And Kelly Fox weekends on your home for hit music. The Q102.9 and 104.9 in Prescott and Cottonwood.
Hello, Mr. Hopkins. This is Sue from Disaster Relief. We're calling neighbors statewide to get help for storm victims. Children, lost parents, homes. You can. Oh, thank you. But could you send the money now? The need is urgent. We so appreciate you. It means so much, but it has to be now. It has to be cash. No credit cards, checks, just cash.
The moment they ask for immediate cash is the moment you know something's wrong. Think before you send money. Learn more at scamawareness.org.
Schools have a big problem. Every year, millions of kids come to class with nothing. So teachers end up spending thousands of dollars of their own money just to make sure kids have what they need to learn. I'm the school supply fairy. My assistant and I do what we can. But we could really use your help.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got just a few minutes left in the program. We're talking about the United Verde Soil Program with Clarkdale Town Manager Gail Mayberry. Again, a phone number for you, 649-3614. That'll put you in touch with Freeport Minerals Corporation. Website is clarkdale.az.gov, and it's on the right-hand side of the page there for more information about this. Okay, we talked about jobs, we talked about housing, we talked about what's going on, the scope of the project. Very huge. Odds are it's going to take many, many years for this to happen. When somebody comes to my yard and says, Paul, it's time for your yard to be dug up.
Right.
They're taking about, what, 6 inches, maybe 2 feet, up to 2 feet?
It just kind of depends on the yard. Yep, anywhere from 6 inches to 2 feet.
Clarkdale's been a very big zero-scape community.
Right.
Over the last 10 years, 12 years, I've been doing stories with you guys on this, that zero-scape, stone, cactus, low water usage plants.
Native vegetation.
Native vegetation. Right. So is Clarkdale encouraging residents to do that? Because when you drive down Main Street, Clarkdale now, you can see some of it's already happened.
Right.
But there are still lots of nice lawns and stuff in Clarkdale.
There are.
Too,
so we're definitely encouraging folks to take the opportunity to reduce their water consumption and have a really beautifully landscaped yard. And Freeport is working with us on that to encourage folks. It's certainly every property owner's individual choice, but Freeport will come in and they basically will replace with what you have, with the exception being if you have a grass lawn. If you want to have sod, you can have sod that comes back in. But if you want to convert from grass to a xeriscape with some kind of a granite, they will do that. They will not replace granite with grass.
Okay.
So they're working hard to encourage that water conservation as well. And it is a soil replacement program, but they also restore your landscaping. So if in that process of removing soil, they have to remove some shrubs or bushes or plants, then they'll replace those as part of the project.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, Clarkdale's going to look brand new, like a big shiny penny. Do you know where they're going to start first? Is it going to be Main Street all the way down?
Actually, they have a work plan that designates where they will start, and the priorities are for households that have small children or pregnant women. So it's not really the
it's not
area.
Like we're going to go down this side of the street and we're going to boom, boom, boom. Yeah. It's going to be okay.
When folks fill out their questionnaires, they answer some of that personal information so that they can rank who they're going to work with first.
Do we know how long it'll take to do a yard? Because it's front and back.
Yeah, actually, they're estimating they'll have a couple of crews working, and they think they'll do about 4 yards a week. So
wow!
It's a fairly quick process. They've done this in a number of communities, and the contractors that they're working with are experienced. So they try to move fairly quickly. But when we visited with folks in Bisbee, they were all really happy with the way they were treated, the care that was taken. So we're expecting to see that same level of care in Clarkdale, and the residents who have been working with Freeport so far, and they've just started contacting folks and starting to design their personal remediation plans for their lots, and input that we're getting is that that's going really well.
Awesome. We're out of time. Gail,
All right.
thank you so much for
Thanks
coming
for
in.
having me.
We're going to have you back again. We'll have you back again. Okay.
Very good.
Clarkdale Town Manager Gail Mabry. Again, the phone number is 928-649-3614. That's for Freeport Minerals Corporation. Clarkdale.az.gov's website. Thanks for watching and listening. This is Countywide, and we'll talk to you again next time.